Hello and welcome to another edition of PAC's Check-ins. I'm Sean Davido, your host, and I'm here with Steve Groom, the Finance Director for the City of Yakima. Thank you for joining me today, Steve.
Sean, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
And today we're going to talk about some of the finances and how the city has fared during this COVID epidemic. What is the city's current financial situation since the pandemic began? Can you talk just a little bit about that?
You bet, Sean. And that is the big question. There has been uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty. It's been a roller coaster. We've been navigating with very little current actual data. We've been trying to translate the daily health district statistics into how to help every city department adapt. That would be from scheduling to course correcting budgeting. Different departments have had to buy masks, gloves, sanitizer, plexiglass shields. Some of them have had to work remotely. All of those are unbudgeted costs, certainly inconveniences to work around. Sales tax comes to the city now. As you know, property tax and sales tax are the two biggest funding sources for this city services. Mm-hmm. We get our sales tax on a 2-month delay from the state. The merchants send the sales tax to the state, and then the state sends it to us. That means our decision-making data comes in way after the fact. Can I show you 3 slides that I've prepared that I think will be helpful?
Yeah, let me share the screen here for you, Steve. This will take us just a second. We're new and learning. We were just talking about this, so I'm going to share my screen, which has the city's website for a second here, which will allow me to share Steve's screen. And this is the City of Yakima's website. If you need information, go to yakimawa.gov, and that's a little information. Steve, you should have control. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, so I've put together a couple of graphs. I showed these graphs to City Council just a couple of weeks ago. What you're seeing is the sales tax revenue that has come into the city. The graph on the left shows June, and it shows how much city sales tax we got in our here at the city, and it shows the 5 prior years. And this year, the June remittance was down $128,000. So that means that the city got less. Now, this would have been on a 2-month delay, would have been for April. And then the cumulative, the graph on the right shows the cumulative 6 months for this year compared to the same cumulative 6 months in the previous year. Right. And you can see that it's down $144,000. Now, on a $10 million scale graph, that doesn't look like a whole lot. Let me show you one more graph. This is how the city's remittance, the sales tax, compares to the prior year each month, and for the first higher than last year. Now think about what that means for merchants, for the local economy. That means that they're doing better than they were doing last year when they send the sales tax on all those purchases. Then COVID happened. COVID, if you recall, the emergency, we declared an emergency about March 13th, I think. So for half of the month of March, we were closed. 2 months later, you can see in May, we found out how much March had been affected to the local economy. Remember, I'm using sales tax revenue as a measure of how everybody in the city that runs a business is doing. Yeah. So if that's all you knew, at that point in time, we said, oh my goodness, for half a month of March, we were down nearly 12% over prior year. The next month, when we get the remittance for the next month where we were closed, the full month, it's going to be twice as bad. Well, it wasn't. As you can see, it came in better. It was still worse than last year, but not as bad as we expected.
Right.
Now, on July 31st, we just did get our most recent remittance for the state. That would have been for 2 months prior. That would have been for May. And as you can see, it's 3 months over prior year.
Wow. I
would call that kind of back to normal. Now, I've been trying to think, why is that? Right. Why has sales tax come back? And I can, this is just me thinking.
Right.
I can think of 5 different reasons. There was the one-time stimulus checks that taxpayers got. Yeah. That was a one-time bump. There's also unemployment checks, and then it had a little plus. That it had a little boost, and there's some little uncertainty about where that's going to go. But still, that would have been helping the average citizen as they're going through their lives, purchasing what they need or what have you.
Some of the non-essential workers, that were not working, were still being able to contribute, right?
Exactly. Now think of, so if I'm imagining the people that are home, can't go anywhere, can't do anywhere, I think what we're seeing is we also saw, well, we did see an increase in online purchasing, sales tax on online purchases. So why would that be? That could be people that are at home. Also, if you recall, in April, the governor opened up construction. Why is that important for Yakima? Yakima is a growing town. You drive around town, you see construction of new properties, apartment buildings, houses, what have you. So that's important not only for the growing population. We want, we're still adding people to our economy, but it was important certainly to the labor, to the people who were employed in that building. And then I'm looking at sales tax. So the purchase of materials is where I'm seeing it, and then I'm inferring the activity behind it. And also, I don't want to neglect the economic stability of Yakima.
Yeah, exactly.
And here I think I want to give a lot of credit to the police department. Our downtown is intact. We don't have any businesses that were destroyed or damaged. We have a new police chief that came in a year ago. Nobody knew this was going to happen, but he has a philosophy of community policing. We know that he's been walking around meeting people. He's been training all of his whole department to do the same. So when COVID came along, we had a police department that handled it really well and had created an atmosphere here in the community.
Yeah. And relationships with the community that definitely help. So I totally agree. I totally agree. Let me get back to our other screen here.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's encouraging information, Steve. I mean, it looks, the graphs you showed, I mean, obviously there was a dip, but maybe not even as bad of a dip for a multitude of reasons, right?
Right.
It's kind of like I don't want to say it's a perfect storm, but it's a mixture of our stable economy, our stable agricultural economy, and a mix of some of these other factors that actually are making Yakima stay pretty stable. What does that mean for the average Yakima resident, Steve? What does that mean for Yakima?
Okay, so I'm looking at sales tax coming into the city, and that's what funds city services, but we're looking at what's the activity behind it. I hope it means that there are citizens thriving. Mostly in total, for the sales tax to have come back, that means in total, when businesses thrive and employees are intact, the sales tax will improve. That's what we depend on to deliver the basic services that everybody relies on at the city. It also means that the city's funding of streets and fire and police and all the basic infrastructure, it's going to be mostly okay, we think so far. That's going to be felt and seen by the average Yakima resident. And I hope that it's also an indicator that we can all see the light at the end of the tunnel on this. And that's one of the messages I think you and I wanted to convey when we put this together. Just interpreting what we're seeing as a city, what does that mean for every citizen of Yakima? I think it's good news. We don't know when the end is yet, but it's good news.
It's positive and encouraging messages, at least for our community. There are some other places that are struggling.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about those. I'm skipping around in my questions here. Some other cities are experiencing a little bit more financial impact than Yakima. Why do you say, why is Yakima different? You've explained a little bit about it, but let's talk a little bit more about it.
Sure, every city's different. One of the things that I think we've read about is our percent of essential workers, for one thing, but that's not all. Perhaps the fact that we're somewhat isolated has helped. Sometimes it hasn't. Our citizens certainly had a big effect when they chose to exercise their rights in a way that protected our city's reputation. Financially, we've had a real roller coaster, and we spent a lot of time, effort, and discussion on it, different game plans in case they were needed. Every city has, but it came down to knowing our city, knowing our people, keeping calm, managing with what we knew, not better or worse than any other city, just different with our own unique situation.
Right. Now, some city departments are experiencing some limitations. Let's talk about those. I know I've helped parks with some stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and that's a great example. Parks had to close some of their locations. Now they eliminated programming. They were forced to close to deliver services to citizens, but that doesn't mean that they can stop the maintenance. You drive around, you still see that the city parks are being mowed. Other departments that have experienced limitations would be fire and police. They have had to do their jobs, I mean, not really with one hand tied behind their back, but certainly with a lot of effort, personal protective equipment, new procedures, that they've had to guard their health a lot more. All departments are now having to do extra purchasing, and that means they also have to track and document for CARES Act. I can't tell you how much joy that brings everybody to tell them that they have to do their normal jobs plus administrative stuff on top. We're grateful to some of the funding that we think we're going to be able to access for the CARES Act, but that's going to mean a lot of work and effort to access that. Also, some departments are just really restricted in how to continue issuing permits, taking water payments. Some have had to get creative, or just plain having to work around adversity if they're still open, how to continue to connect with our citizens.
Now, let's talk a little bit about revenue streams. Businesses contribute to those revenue streams. There are some sectors that are not necessarily thriving. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. And in fact, can I show you two more slides?
Yeah, let me share the screen here. It might take me a second. Bear with us.
Sure, and I'm going to be talking about lodging tax.
Okay.
Lodging tax is one sector that we're concerned about. So if I show you,
this is the city website. Give me just a second here, Steve. I've got to allow you. I got to give you control, Steve. We're gonna give Steve control here.
An example of see, we're a working example of creativity and working around adversity.
Right, exactly. Hold on. Wrong button.
I think we're there.
Are you there? There we go. There we go. Go ahead, Steve.
So if you're looking at this is the similar graph to what I showed you previously, but this is lodging tax. If we look at the month of June, you see the graph on the left. You can see that there's a significant drop from this June to the prior June, $123,000 different. And if you look at the 6 months cumulative compared to the same 6 months before, you can see that it's dropped, but this is going to be a sustained issue. Our hotels were down to 20% occupancy. They were laying off staff.
Right.
We think it's going to be all the way into 2021. There are hoteliers speaking to meeting and event and sports event planners. So here's what it's looked like month over month. We had a couple of good months before COVID, and then COVID happened. The first half month was bad, and then it did get worse. It went down 80%. Like I said, they were at about 20% occupancy.
Yeah.
So this is where we're at, and we think this is going to be a 16-month recovery. This is going to be really tough on not just hotels and their staff, but there's some other parts of our economy, restaurants, venues that people come into town to also do while they're here. When they come to our convention center, there's a lot of, we know our town, we know all the things that people would want to do. Yeah. That they can't. Well, that means that there's some businesses and some employees.
Right.
So that covers that section. You can take back control.
That's great information. It's a little challenging, but I guess that information actually kind of shows that people were staying home and doing what they were supposed to do when they were supposed to do it. And so, right. So ultimately, I guess that's a good thing. And we will come out of this, like you were saying. I think we're on the uptick, at least here in our community, at least for now. There may be challenges ahead, but let's talk a little bit more about what's been the hardest part of the COVID pandemic for here in Yakima from a finance perspective. You've talked quite a bit about it, but what's been the hardest thing for you as the finance director for the city?
Sean, I think it's been forecasting. We didn't know 2 months ago what we know now, and we still can't see too far into the future. We're in the process of forecasting all of our funding sources. In fact, we're trying to forecast out through December 2021, if you can believe it, because right. Every department in the city is working on next year's budget. And with the roller coaster, we still don't know when the end of this is going to be. And as you can imagine, a little 1 or 2% difference this month has a drastic impact 16 months out. It's not over. I think we see the end of the tunnel, but even with 5 months experience, we don't know. And that is a really difficult thing for the city of finance from a finance perspective, how to navigate the current year and how to create next year's budget in a way that makes sense.
And we're coming up on budget season here pretty soon. So you guys are working hard. I'm sure we usually normally do budget hearings and things in November. I'm sure there will be more information on that. I'd like to give some people, we've shown the website, I'd like to give some people a little bit of information on where they can get information. I'm going to share my screen now. Give me just a second. There we go. Okay, and so as you can see, this is the City of Yakima's website at yakimawa.gov. And one of the things I want you to talk about is the virtual City Hall and just about some of the options for people to be able to make payments.
Certainly. As you know, the City Hall lobby has been closed. There has always been 4 different ways to make payments. Let's see if I can remember them all. There's setting up automatic debit, there's paying online, there's paying by phone, and then there's paying in person. This week, I think every Tuesday now, our customer service department has started making appointments to meet with people over at the Harmon Center to set up online management of their accounts. Our city customer service team, they come into City Hall every day. They're taking a lot more phone calls than they used to. They're here to help. They're here to solve problems as they always are.
And right here's just a list of some of the many things that you can access from the City of Yakima's website. And in these trying times also, we want to make sure that we talk about COVID response. And the city's information, if you go to the COVID-19 page, which is accessible right from the very front page. I'm going to click back here and go to that. So right here on the very front page, if you go to click for COVID information, it has multiple links, multiple sources of information, and credible, reliable information, Steve. And that's what we try to point people to, is credible and reliable information. And there's a ton of it here on the city's website. So I'm going to pop back out here. And I just wanted to share that with people. And let's talk about anything else that we need to talk about before the big budget season hits. I know we're cautiously optimistic. There's some good indicators, right?
We are. And Sean, thanks for hosting this conversation. If there's one thing I would want citizen and business owners to know, it's that we at the city know that we serve them. I already mentioned when businesses thrive and employees are intact, the sales tax improves. We at the city depend on sales tax and property tax for our budget, but that's to deliver the basic services that every citizen relies on at the city. In addition, folks are trying to forecast their own futures. I hope this is an encouragement to everyone that here in Yakima, we have seen the economy come back. I hope that's a positive indicator that gives us hope for all. And finally, you're pointing out how transparent we're trying to be with our city website. It's important to me that cities can see the city's budget and how we're managing their money to deliver. The infrastructure is the foundation of a safe, clean city. Yakima is always striving to be an increasingly well-managed city, and I hope working together to protect the city's reputation, we will continue to grow and prosper as we navigate further uncertainty. Thank you, Sean.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for joining me today, Steve, and I just want to thank you for all that you do. I know that this hasn't been an easy time for any of us, and we'll get through it to the end, whenever that end comes. So
appreciate your optimism. We can do it.
Okay. Thank you for joining me, and thank you all for joining us.